My name is Jane Lamison, and I'm a Master Gardener of Napa County. And we want to thank you for joining us this evening for our April Library Talk. And we bring you the library talks every month, the first Thursday of every month, in partnership with the Napa County Library. And tonight's topic is the introduction to companion planting. But first, before we get into our program, I'd like to turn it over to our partner, Tess, at the Napa County Library. And she's going to talk a little bit about the books that are available at our Napa County Library on this topic. Tess?
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm filling in for Stefano tonight, so it's nice to meet all of you. Yes, I'm going to talk about a couple of books that have valuable information on tonight's topic. So,
Tess, let me interrupt you for a minute.
Sure.
Jane, can you go to the next slide, please?
So first off, if you're looking for a way to minimize disease and reduce pests in your garden, Plant Partners, Science-Based Companion Planting Strategies for the Vegetable Garden by Jessica Walliser provides much useful information. This book encourages you to think about the relationships plants have so you can make informed choices about what pairings work best in your garden. Included are suggestions on how to attract specific beneficial insects and improve pollination. It's written in easy to understand language, and you will learn the many benefits to pairing plants in your garden. Next, author John Jeavons has revised and updated each chapter of how to grow more vegetables and fruits, nuts, berries, grains, and other crops. This classic gardening book is in its 9th edition now. It includes new sections on using less water and new information about building the most effective compost. For those who like charts and lists, there's a great list of common vegetables and their companions and their antagonists. A quick look at the lists helps you determine what vegetables you might want to pair with your pole beans and other garden favorites, and also a foreword by local Alice Waters, which I think is a great feature of that book. So please enjoy tonight's program, Introduction to Companion Planting.
Thank you, Tess. Okay, we have a few housekeeping things we need to touch on, and one is our about Master Gardeners. First, Master Gardeners are volunteers. We're volunteers within the community, Napa County, and we're certified and trained by the University of California. And our mission is public education. And our goal is on public education is to touch on some of the key areas of home horticulture, integrated pest management, water conservation, and sustainable landscaping. And you'll find that Master Gardeners partner with other members of the community, such as the Napa County Library. We have this library talk every month, the first Thursday of every month. And you'll also find us throughout the community with other public education opportunities. For example, our Park Rose Garden, we have the Las Flores Learning Garden. Not only is it a learning garden to learn about various plants, but we also hold public education opportunities there the last Saturday of every month. There's the farmers market. You'll find us at the Napa Farmers Market every Tuesday. And we also are now back up in St. Helena on the first Friday of every month. And of course, you can always find us at the help desk. And we also offer and partner with Olay Health, Masters in the Garden, with a monthly program. The food forum is another opportunity. And you're going to find us throughout the community and other public education opportunities. We have a few more housekeeping. Thank you. The survey. The survey is sent out by the UC, and this is a survey to all the participants that joined this evening. And the goal of the survey is to make sure that we're touching on the topics that are important to you. And those are ones where the survey tries to determine, have you made a change in how you're gardening or what you're doing in your garden? And in regards to your home horticulture, maybe you've made some changes in your irrigation or something like that. And what they're trying to determine is, are we hitting the important items that we need to be hitting? So we hope you'll respond to that survey. But if for some reason you do not want to receive the survey, now's the time. Put your name in the chat box and we will remove your name from that survey. Speaking of chat box, we have one more item we need to talk about, and that is as we go through the program tonight, there may be questions that come up. So please put your questions in the chat box and we will get to those after the presentation during the Q&A period. So now, after all those little items are out of the way, I'm going to turn it over to Jane Berger, our Master Gardener, speaker of the night, and she's going to talk about Introduction to Companion Planting.
Thank
Take it
you.
away, Jane.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody, and thank you for joining us this evening for an introduction to companion planting. It's a complex, layered topic, and I hope this presentation will interest you enough to include some companion planting techniques in your growing space if you haven't already. Today, we'll discuss the definition of companion planting, what it is and how it works. We'll look at some history, scientific evidence, methodology, and benefits, and conclude with some reasons to have hope for agriculture moving forward. Companion planting or interplanting is a gardening method that harnesses nature's symbiotic properties by intentionally using plant diversity in the garden or field. Many plants have substances in their roots, flowers, and leaves that can alternately repel and/or attract insects. Through experience, gardeners have learned that using companion planting throughout the landscape is an important part of integrated pest management. Through experience, I just said that, companion planting helps bring a balanced ecosystem to our yards. Since food gardeners are one of the primary places, aside from the natural world, where companion planting strategies are used, gardeners who focus on planting a diversity of vegetables, fruit, herbs, and flowers are benefiting the garden ecosystem as a whole. Nature integrates a diversity of plants, insects, animals, and other organisms into every ecosystem, so there's no waste, as the death of one organism can create food for another. While there's relatively little scientific research around this method of planting, it's been used effectively by gardeners and farmers for thousands of years. In China, mosquito ferns have been used as companion plants for rice crops for at least 1,000 years. The mosquito ferns float on the surface of still water. Their name refers to the fact that the plants sometimes cover a pond or other body of water, preventing mosquitoes and other insects from penetrating through to the water to lay eggs. These mosquito ferns host a cyanobacterium that fixes nitrogen into the soil from the atmosphere and block light from plants that would compete with the rice. The cyanobacterium obtain energy via photosynthesis. Companion planting was also practiced in different forms by indigenous peoples of the Americas between 8 and 10,000 years ago. They domesticated squash, then maize, then common beans, forming the Three Sisters agricultural technique. The corn stalk was the trellis for the beans, which climbed the stalk and fixed nitrogen into the soil, benefiting the maize. The wide squash leaves provided shade for the soil to keep it fertile and moist and block weed growth. Many of the modern principles of companion planting were also present many centuries ago in the forest gardens in Asia. Rather than cutting down the mountain forests to acquire more farming land, ancient gardeners created terraces so they could maintain and foster forests along their mountainside rice paddies, and especially above them. The mountain forests provided a reliable source of water, even in dry seasons. Part of a healthy rice terrace system is understanding the importance of forests upslope. The forests help to stabilize the land above the terraces, slow rain runoff, and provide building material. Not only do terraces manage water for irrigation and protect soils, but they also make the mountainside more accessible, keep pests off of rice plants, and provide habitat for aquatic life. Although it seems quite labor-intensive to form and maintain mountain terraces from this community effort, long-wearing gardens with the capacity to hydrate the landscape, stockpile fertility, and produce large quantities of food were created. More recently, in the 1920s, more organic farmers and horticulturalists were using companion planting. For generations, plantings of perennials, annuals, trees, and shrubs were almost exclusively focused on the ornamental value of the garden. This approach has now been shifting to one more focused on providing wildlife habitats and conserving resources. Despite these changes, times haven't changed much in the vegetable garden. The Victory Gardens planted a few generations ago copied farm-style plantings, organizing plants like soldiers in a row or monocropping. Today, many gardeners still view the vegetable garden as a place of order with perfect lines of vegetables surrounded by rows of bare or mulched soil. Some vegetable gardeners see their plots as spaces for maximizing yield for human consumption. Flowering plants that don't provide edible crops are banished to the edge of the garden or not included. We now know that gardeners who include herbs and flowers in their vegetable plots benefit the garden as a whole. Companion planting is also known as interplanting or intercropping, although these terms refer to larger agricultural plots in farming using alternating rows. Among farmers and gardeners, companion planting has long had a history filled with folklore and supposition. But there is new and existing research from universities, government research facilities, nonprofit government research institutes, and corporate and private research programs that point to companion planting, creating ecosystems made of many different and complex layers. The gardener plays a role in the many parts of the garden that are in constant interaction, but the different components, from the plants and soil to the insects, fungi, and microorganisms, all have ongoing effects on each other, whether managed or unmanaged, including through the chemical signals they produce to the underground network of fungi in and around their roots. Research is also being done on working farms and demonstration farms via educational and research programs, and the study locations mimic the conditions on real-life farms. None of these can perfectly recreate the conditions of real working farms with their variables and unpredictable situations, but plenty of studies are conducted on working farms where conditions are real and plant partnerships are studied in fields and data collected and analyzed on site. Scientists have provided evidence that supports some facets of sustainable agriculture, like companion planting. The results of their work show there is potential for home gardeners and small farms to take advantage of the nature of plants to affect each other's growth. Whether these plants harbor beneficial insects, release nutrients advantageous to another crop's growth, or provide a buffer against the elements to tender seedlings. The principles of companion planting have been shown through rigorous scientific experimentation to be beneficial to planting systems. Regardless of the scope of the study or the size of the growing plot, most important is the avoidance of monocultures. Diversification is key, whether in a home garden or agricultural settings. How does companion planting work? Some primary benefits of companion planting are reduced pest, weed, and disease pressure, improved soil fertility and structure, improved pollination, and biological control. Reduced pest pressure. Disrupting insect feeding behaviors through masking or hiding host plants helps repel pests damaging the plants, either from eating them or herbivory released by a host plant, may be masked by a companion plant, hiding them in a sense. Volatile organic compounds are emitted by plants as a consequence of their interaction with biotic and abiotic factors. Biotic means living things within an ecosystem, for example, plants, animals, and bacteria. Abiotic factors refer to non-living creatures, non-living things in an ecosystem, such as temperature, light, and water. Volatile organic compounds, or VOCs, have an important role in plant evolution, often involved in defense and pollinator attraction. Trap cropping is a method of companion planting that uses this phenomenon by growing a neighboring crop around the perimeter or interplanted with a cash crop, because it's more attractive to pests and serves to distract them from the main crop. It was once thought that odors released by certain companion plants like marigolds, peppermint, sage, and thyme repelled pests. But new data suggests these odors actually mask the chemicals emitted by host plants. And if the companion plants are interplanted tightly, there's a hypothesis among scientists called the resource competition hypothesis that plant-eating insects are less likely to find and remain on a host plant in diverse habitats. Reduced weed pressure. Companion planting can reduce weeds in different ways. Two primary ways are employing living mulches and cover crops or green manure, and allelopathy. Living mulches are often low-growing crops planted beneath main crops to suppress weeds, retain water, and improve the soil by increasing beneficial microbes and fungi. Different depths of crop roots and cover crop roots allow plants to occupy the same space without competing for nutrients and can help break up the soil. Companion plants can act as living mulches. One favorite combination is broccoli and crimson clover. Research in Hawaii showed that this combination increases the number of spiders that patrol the broccoli plants to control pests. Cooler for the broccoli. In this manner, companion plants can improve other factors for the soil, such as the stability of soil particles, soil structure, runoff control, and water holding capacity. Some other popular mulches are white clover for berries and yellow mustard for summer squash. These methods increase allelopathy, the science of chemically mediated competition between plants, in which an organism produces one or more biochemicals that influence the germination, growth, survival, and reproduction of other plants. Allelochemicals can be found in any part of a plant, including the leaves, stems, flowers, and roots, and also found in soil around the allelopathic plant. Allelochemicals can restrict nutrient uptake or stifle mycorrhizal relationships between other plants and fungi, preventing them from enhancing nutrient and water uptake. A commonly studied example is winter ryegrass, which has 16 different allelochemicals that prevent weed seed germination, but do not harm vegetable seedlings grown in the rye residue. Other common cultivated plants with allelopathic effects are sunflowers, oats, radish, alfalfa, and cucumber. Plants are exposed to various stress factors, such as disease, injury, herbivory, and extreme heat and cold, and they can't run away. As a result, plants must adjust their normal functions in response to or in preparation for such threats to their well-being. To achieve this, plants have developed a communication system to transmit information based on volatile organic compounds. Plants can emit these VOCs to warn other plants of forthcoming danger, and nearby plants exposed to the VOCs prepare their own defense weapons in response. For example, if a tomato plant has been attacked by a pest, it secretes a chemical to warn nearby tomato plants that an attack is coming, and the plants will produce chemicals toxic to the pest. A plant can also reduce its own damage once its leaves are chewed to make them unappealing by increasing bitter compounds. The power of allelopathy and living mulches to manage weed growth is one of the core concepts of science-based companion planting. Reduced disease pressure. The introduction of cover crops and living mulches in the garden or field is a technique that also suppresses certain plant diseases. Studies show reduced disease rates when the cover crop is planted, grown, and then tilled in the season before the vegetable crops are planted. Cover crops reduce disease prevalence when their residue is left in place for the next crop. Competition for resources among the microorganisms from cover crops and living mulches, along with allelopathy, decrease the ability of pathogens or pathogenic organisms to infect a plant. Another way cover crops and living mulches can impact soil-dwelling diseases is through their ability to support beneficial microorganisms that are antagonistic to pathogenic species. This can be as general disease suppression, where competition for resources among microorganisms decreases the ability of pathogens to affect a plant. It can also occur as specific disease suppression, resulting from an increase in the particular soil microbes that directly affect pathogenic microorganisms. For example, several beneficial soil-dwelling fungi species are known to combat Pythium and Fusarium, such as Gliocladium virens. Brassica cover crops have been shown to reduce the rate of verticillium wilt in cauliflower and stem rot in lettuce. For the partnership to work, the brassica cover crop debris must be tilled into the soil 3 or 4 weeks before planting the cauliflower or lettuce seedlings, turning the brassica into green manure. Likewise, tomatoes grown after a cover crop of hairy vetch have less foliar disease, including early blight and septoria leaf spot. The vetch is a cold-tolerant legume, often used as a cover crop that fixes in large amounts of nitrogen. It forms a thick mat that's excellent for suppressing weeds and foliar disease, but I don't think it's made for small garden plots because it might be very difficult to get rid of. In the past few decades, researchers have found that cover crops improve various soil properties and contribute positively to weed management. Improved soil fertility and structure. Living mulches and green manures can improve soil structure by using certain plant companions, including those aimed at improving the condition of the soil through root compounds excreted by the roots of living plants. Deep tilling and rototilling have fallen out of favor as ways to increase arable soil. Deep digging destroys the ecosystems already present below the surface. It disrupts the delicate web of tunnels that have been linked together by earthworms, insects, and microbes. Rototillers will slice through earthworms and annihilate our garden workers. The nutrients that arrive on the surface after tilling will disappear before plants can absorb them. The digging process will also transfer the soil on the surface deep into the bed. As the top layer of soil is without microbes, this soil will now combine with plant roots. Deep digging can also bring long buried weed seeds to the surface to germinate. The soil's fluffiness belies its now weak structure, and it will compact with the first hard rain. This very process creates conditions like those during the Dust Bowl era. It's better to build a system where the garden's soil organisms generate healthy soil. Feed the soil with organic matter like mulches and compost, and improve the structure with cover crops or other soil amendments. The bacteria, fungi, nematodes, or roundworms, and insects consume this food and convert it into soil through decomposition. Nature builds the soil from the top down and the bottom up. Top down is the constant rain of decomposing leaf litter that decomposes into fluffy earth. We just need to pile on organic matter with deep layers of mulch. Mulch composts in place to create mature soil teeming with life. Bottom-up soil building is done with plants. In nature, fertility comes from vegetable and soil life, not from a bag of fertilizer. Many plants excel at pulling nutrients from deep in the earth and drawing them to the surface where other plants can use them. The ecological garden imitates a mature ecosystem by emphasizing perennials rather than annuals. For ornamental and wildlife gardens, this is easily done. It's tougher with vegetable gardens. The advantage of perennials are many. Once they are established, they require little care from us. They eliminate seed starting, tilling, and the opportunity for weeds that tilling brings. They allow the soil to stay intact. They require less water and less fertilizer than annuals. Their deep root systems go into pockets of nutrients that annuals can't reach. They are often more resistant to pests, disease, and the pressure from other plants they share space with. Because they are year-round plants, perennials offer dependable habitat to wildlife and beneficial insects. However, many annuals in your vegetable garden can be replaced with perennials. There are perennial greens such as kale and collards, and other perennial crops like onions, sorrel, asparagus, artichokes, rhubarb, and chives. Improve pollination. Using companion plants is an excellent method of attracting pollinators to our gardens. Though planting companion plants for our vegetables, we will attract pollinators such as bees, birds, and butterflies while deterring pests. Pollinators will spread pollen and help fertilize our plants. Increased pollination leads to an increase in edible plants throughout the growing season. Pollinators are living creatures that help to pollinate plants by transferring pollen. When pollen is transferred between two plants of the same species, it allows fertilization to begin. The most common types of pollinators are insects such as bees, butterflies, and wasps. However, many different creatures such as birds, bats, and geckos are also classified as pollinators. The greater the diversity and abundance of pollinators in our landscapes, the better our chances of having great pollination rates in our vegetable gardens. Pollinating insects contribute to breeding, hybridization, and yield of crop plant species worldwide. Both global demand for food and dependency of food crops on pollination are projected to increase, while wild pollinators have declined over recent decades. Key reasons for the loss are human-induced land use change and application of chemical pesticides, both resulting from intensive agriculture. To retain wild pollinators, more floral resource diversity and alternatives to pesticides must be integrated into agriculture management techniques and practices. Intercropping and, on a smaller scale, companion planting integrate additional floral resources and habitat connectivity into vegetable production. In an experiment to test the effectiveness of bee-friendly borage as a companion plant to strawberries, insect visitors to the test patch of strawberry and borage versus visitors to the control, strawberry plants only. For example, there are hundreds of different species of aphids found in North America. Some are host-specific and others are more general feeders. But all species of aphids are common prey for a huge diversity of beneficial insects, including tiny parasitic wasps, ladybugs, lacewings, spiders, soldier beetles, damselbugs, and others. No matter what species of aphid you're dealing with and which plant they are attacking, you can draw many of their predators by planting members of the carrot family, Apiaceae, including dill, cilantro, and fennel. Each of these blooms has a shallow, exposed nectary or plant gland that secretes nectar, a perfect fit for almost all aphid-eating beneficial insects just mentioned. You will also help hide host plants from flying pests by interplanting crops with these fragrant herbs. improved biological control. One more benefit of companion planting is improved biological control, which is a component of integrated pest management and is also exemplified by the other benefits we've discussed here. Biological control is defined as the reduction of pest populations by natural enemies and typically involves an active human role. All insect species are also suppressed by naturally occurring organisms and environmental factors with no human input. This is frequently referred to as natural control and includes biological control of insects and weeds and plant diseases. Natural enemies of insect pests, also known as biological control agents, include predators, parasitoids, and pathogens. Biological control of weeds includes insects and pathogens. Biological control agents of plant diseases are most often referred to as antagonists. Predators, such as lady beetles and lacewings, are mainly free-living species and consume a lot of prey during their lifetime. Parasitoids are species whose immature stage develops on or within a single host, ultimately killing the host, which a parasite does not do. Many species of wasps and some flies are parasitoids. Pathogens are disease-causing organisms, including bacteria, fungi, and viruses that kill or debilitate their host and are relatively specific to certain insect groups. Successful natural enemies should have high reproductive rates, good searching ability, host specificity, and be adaptable to different environmental conditions and be synchronized with the host. A high reproductive rate is important so populations of the natural enemy can rapidly increase when hosts are available. If a natural enemy is an egg parasitoid, it must be present when host eggs are available. This also demonstrates host synchronization. Host specificity can vary. For example, searching for only one or a few host species. Spiders, for example, feed on many different hosts. No natural enemy has all these attributes, but those with several characteristics will be more effective in helping to maintain beneficial pest populations. There are three broad and slightly overlapping types of biological control: classical, augmentative, and conservation. Classical biological control refers to the practice of introducing one or a group of natural enemy species of foreign origin to control a pest that many times is also foreign in origin. It's used on a large outdoor scale when the complex of natural enemies associated with an insect or seed pest may be inadequate. Often the natural enemies are found in the home range of the invasive pest, exotic, introduced, or invasive. Because of the long, rigorous, and often costly process of funding, testing, quarantining, and rearing these natural enemies, classical biological control programs are typically conducted by scientists at government agencies or universities with public funding. You're probably familiar with the fact that governmental agencies release specific predatory or parasitic insects to help control invasive insects, or release bacteria, fungi, or arthropods, insects, mites, and their relatives, to control invasive weeds. Augmentative biological control is similar, but on a smaller scale in a controlled environment, such as a greenhouse or conservatory. It's a highly involved science, since the majority of insect predators feed only on a specific pest or group of pests. We have to know that what we are releasing actually eats problematic pests and stays around to reproduce. Conservation of natural enemies is probably the most important and readily available biological controls practice for growers and gardeners. Natural enemies occur in all productions, from backyard gardens to commercial fields. Conservation biocontrol refers to protecting and promoting the beneficial enemies already present in our landscapes by reducing or eliminating pesticides, creating a habitat that's favorable to insects, and providing them with necessary food sources, not by intentionally releasing them into the environment. Though vegetable gardens are by their nature cultivated and artificial environments, we have the opportunity through companion planting to use the space for more than growing food. We can grow nature above and below the ground, improving the biodiversity of our neighborhood and community. We can provide needed resources for creatures whose natural habitats are disappearing. Growing our own food allows us to take responsibility for our own piece of the earth. It builds our soil, saves resources, even as the aesthetic component feeds our souls. I wanted to show you, a master gardener sent me these pictures. Apparently Burpee marketed, they're no longer on the website, marketed what they call power couples. They've paired together pumpkins and marigolds, chamomile and cauliflower, and basil and tomatoes. And the gardener asked me, is this marketing or are these effective? And these are actually effective couples. So that's a hope. I've not seen that before. And the thing I wanted to leave you with is an excerpt from Rob Foe's blog for Pesticide Action Network North America. He's a farmer, teacher, and a communications associate for PAN in Iowa and has a blog about local agriculture there. He says that in March, the landscape where he lives is bleak and the remain adequate in the face of the widespread desolation catered to corn and soybeans. In a world where diversity is an indicator of health, this is not a good look. But Rob says he sees signs that can give us hope for the future. One of his neighbors transitioned an area from corn and soy to perennial pollinators 3 years ago, and flowering plants are returning to the ditches in the area, providing highways for diverse sets of pollinators to travel from the field to Rob's family farm. It seems a small thing until we realize this illustrates the power of the natural world to heal and bring life. Rob also sees evidence that more farmers would prefer to be stewards and that they understand there's more to growing than achieving the highest crop yield per acre. He says for the first time in a long time, there are more growers who agree we need to adapt our agriculture to the land and not the land to our agriculture. The natural world is ready to change with us. It's just waiting for us to give it the opportunity to succeed. Thank you. And I wanted to point out a couple of things in the references at the end of this presentation. I've divided it into print resources and electronic resources. And here's Plant Partners, the book that the librarian was speaking about earlier this evening. And I used it. It's quite a good book, as all these others are. And I wanted to show you, I have Rob Foe's blog here. And if you go to www.pana.org, you can find his blogs. And I find them personal and interesting. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Jane. We had a couple of questions in the chat already. We will have this slideshow mounted on our webpage within a few days, along with most of our past library talk presentations and tons of other resources. So our website is napamg.ucanr.edu. You should bookmark it. Next slide, Jane. When you pull up that fabulous webpage, when you pull up that fabulous webpage, about halfway down on the left-hand side, you are going to see something that says past programs and events. And if you click on that, you'll open up the library of our past recordings. And you will also be able to register for any of our upcoming events that we have listed on our calendar. Next slide, Jane. And speaking of upcoming events, we have a few to tell you about. On this Saturday, the 15th, we are having our annual Tomato Plant Fest and Sale from 9 in the morning until 2 in the afternoon. And that will be at 1710 Soskel Avenue. We have 24, I believe, varieties of tomatoes. They have all been lovingly started right here in Napa by Master Gardeners, and it is a fun day, and you can pick up some great plants. So join us for that. And you can, if you go to our webpage, you can see the actual plant list of various varieties that are available, so you can study it before you come down. On the 16th, this Sunday.
No, it's next Sunday, right? And next Saturday.
Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Yeah, on the 14th, the 15th is when we're doing the plant sale. And the following day, you can find out everything you need to know about growing tomatoes at our food growing forum. And that's a Zoom. So you do need to register in advance to get the link. But it'd be nice to know what to do with all those little tomatoes you're getting. On the 22nd, there is a live presentation on growing table and wine grapes in today's environment. And if you register, you will get the location. On the 29th, we're doing a live presentation on garden design at Las Flores Learning Garden. And the same day, a little bit later, well, right after it, actually, there is a worm composting workshop that will be at 1710 Soskel Avenue, the same place we're selling tomatoes. So go to our website and you can find out more about these events. Thank you. Next slide. Questions. Let's see if we have any for Jane. Jane, I think the only comment we've got so far is that it was really informative, and thank you. We had a couple of questions earlier about where people could access the presentation, but I think I've covered that. And let's just give it another minute to see if anybody has any questions on your presentation.
They might be stunned. I threw so much
There we go.
information out there.
We've got one for you.
Oh, good.
There was somebody earlier.
What would you recommend as a companion plant for roses?
Oh, roses? Rudigraviolens. Rue, common rue.
Oh,
I've got rue planted next to all my rose bushes. There are probably others. You can find tons online. All you have to do is look up companion plants for roses, but that's one that I've been growing. So
all right.
that's my first suggestion.
Okay. It looks like we don't have any other questions, so we can wind this up. We've got
Somebody wants to ask a question without typing it in the chat box. We could open the audio for a little bit.
I don't think, if you want to ask a question, unmute yourself and ask away. I have no way to unmute all.
I have a comment. This is Yvonne. Rainer put in a comment early on about Azolla, which was that mosquito fern that you mentioned way back in the rice paddies. He said if anybody wants to see what it looks like up close, you can go to the Archer Taylor Preserve of the Land Trust, and you'll find it in a small reserve. It is a pest fern for some people, but it's very cute. He says that it's in a small reserve that Redwood Creek flows through in the southeast border of the meadow. where the caretaker house is. So if you know about that Archer Taylor Preserve, you can go see it there.
Well, when I was researching it, I found lots of articles where in lots of different states where it was mentioned as a pest, but it has its benefits. A weed is just a plant in the wrong place, right? So, well, thank you, everybody.
All right, thank you. And please join us at some of our upcoming events, and we'll see all of you at the tomato sale.
Absolutely.
This is the other Jane, just a reminder for our May library talk. That one will be in person, and that's on resilient landscaping with drought and fire, for drought and fire, not with it. So that will be in person at the Napa County Library. So
And it will
it's a
start.
really important topic for the community, and that's why one of the reasons we're having it specifically in person at the library.
Yeah, Lonnie mentioned that it does start at 6 o'clock. The in-person ones are a little bit earlier.
Good
You
to
can
know.
find out all about it on the website.
Fabulous website.
Okay,
Thank you for all your assistance here. And
Thanks,
thank you,
everybody.
everybody, for coming.